2026, and Highlander is actually shooting. Not in development, not in negotiations. Physically, with cameras rolling. Principal photography started January 28th in Scotland. Cavill posted first-look photos from set. Sword, serious expression. The aesthetic immediately reads as John Wick with 5 centuries of history behind it. Then paparazzi shots leaked from Westminster in London. Cavill and Bautista on set together. Bautista in long hair, a bushy beard, and what looks like priestly robes. That image is already iconic. And we haven't seen a single frame of finished footage. Siobhan Cullen, who plays Brenda in the reboot, gave an interview to Deadline straight from the UK set. She called some of the fight sequences she witnessed simply insane, and described Stahelski as someone who speaks the language of action so fluently that there's essentially a second screenplay running parallel to the dialogue. A physical, kinetic layer operating underneath every scene. We'll come back to that. But first, how we even got here. Because this story is genuinely ridiculous. 2008, Summit Entertainment announces the remake. 2009, Justin Lin signs on to direct. 2011, Lin drops out. Juan Carlos Fresnadillo, the director of 28 Weeks Later, takes over. Ryan Reynolds was in final talks to play Connor. Vinnie Jones and Ray Stevenson were both reportedly in conversations for the Kurgan. Fresnadillo leaves in 2012 over creative differences. 2014, Tom Cruise briefly enters discussions for Ramirez. 2016, Stahelski comes aboard. First moment this project felt real. Cavill gets cast in 2021. September 2025, ankle injury during training, false start pushed to January 2026. Rights shift from Lionsgate to Amazon MGM's United Artists. Deal includes future TV series rights. Budget reported at over $100 million. By far the most expensive Highlander production ever made. 17 years, 5 directors, multiple cast overhauls, 1 injury. 1 full distribution restructuring. The fact that this film is shooting right now is a minor miracle, and that context matters because it tells you exactly how much the people involved believe in what they're making. Now, to understand why this reboot carries real weight, you need to understand what the original actually was. Released in 1986, the premise is completely unhinged on paper. An immortal Scottish warrior from the 16th century hiding among ordinary people in modern New York, fighting a death game where the only kill method is decapitation, and every kill triggers the quickening, a mystical energy transfer giving the winner the dead immortal's accumulated power and memories. Queen scored it, Russell Mulcahy directed. Sean Connery played an Egyptian Spanish immortal with his unmistakably Scottish accent, and somehow made it the most charismatic performance in the film. It should not have worked. It worked because Christopher Lambert understood something the concept alone doesn't communicate. He never approached Connor as an action hero. He took the role because the psychological premise genuinely frightened him. What does it do to a human being to watch everyone they love die over and over across 500 years, while remaining physically unchanged? That's not a power fantasy. That's a horror story dressed in rock music and sword fights. The scene of Connor sitting beside Heather as she reaches the end of her life while he hasn't aged a single day. That image is the emotional center of the entire franchise. Immortality in Highlander has always been a curse disguised as a gift. That's why the original earned under $13 million in US theaters, has a 79% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes today, and is celebrating its 40th anniversary with a Studio Canal theatrical re-release on May 4th, 2026, followed by a new Blu-ray edition on June 29th. It grew entirely through word of mouth because it touched something real. Now, here's where the reboot gets genuinely interesting. The official synopsis has been revealed, and it changes the stakes dramatically. The Kurgan is backed by a secret organization bent on unlocking the secret of eternal life, forcing Connor back into the game. Guided by Ramirez and a mortal ally named Kate Bennett, he must confront his past as immortals clash across time and continents, with the fight for the prize becoming a battle for humanity's soul. That last phrase is the one that matters. In the original mythology, the prize grants the last immortal the ability to read the minds of every human being on Earth. If the Kurgan wins, the most sadistic immortal alive gets direct access to every human mind in existence. This reboot is treating that as a genuine apocalyptic scenario, not just a villain's personal victory condition. And here's my theory on how all of this connects. Jeremy Irons plays the leader of the Watchers, a secret order that monitors immortals and views them as a threat to humanity. In the original mythology, and in the 90s TV series with Adrian Paul, the Watchers are obsessive chroniclers. Neutral, not hostile. This reboot repositions them as active antagonists. My read is that the organization backing the Kurgan and the Watchers aren't separate entities at all. They're the same institution. A faction within the Watchers who decided observation isn't enough, and that weaponizing the Kurgan is the most direct path to extracting the secret of eternal life for human use. That makes Iron's character not just a secondary villain, but the actual architect of everything the Kurgan is doing in the present timeline. Two threats that are really one threat, operating on different levels simultaneously. Now the cast, and this ensemble deserves real attention. Cavill as Connor is the obvious starting point and clearly the right one. After being dropped from Superman and losing the Witcher role under circumstances that still don't quite add up publicly, he is approaching this with something to prove. And it shows. Dan Laustsen, who shot John Wick 3 and 4, is the cinematographer. Tyler Bates, the composer behind the John Wick scores and Guardians of the Galaxy, is doing the music. Between those two, the film's entire sensory identity is being built by people who already know how to make action feel mythic. That combination alone should tell you what kind of film this is going to be. Bautista has been chasing the Kurgan role for over a decade, publicly tweeting about it years before he was ever a real candidate. He walked up to Stahelski directly and told him he wanted it. This week he called Cavill easily one of the hardest working actors he's ever shared a set with, specifically pointing to the training grind, and the set photos of Bautista in priestly clothing are, frankly, a more interesting choice than anyone expected. The original Kurgan wore punk leathers and was overtly threatening. This version appears to be hiding inside religious institutional structures. A 500-year-old immortal who learned to accumulate power through human organizations is a categorically more frightening villain, and Bautista has the range to pull that off without making it cartoonish. Russell Crowe as Ramirez reunites him with Jimin Hun-seo for the first time since Gladiator in 2000. The marketing will lean into that heavily, and it's a legitimate hook. His Ramirez can't be Connery's and shouldn't try to be. What Crowe delivers is a man who has been alive for 3,000 years and carries that weight without making it theatrical. Karen Gillan as Heather is actually from Inverness. Real Scottish accent, not performed. The medieval sections are being treated as genuine story, not contextual flashback. If Gillan gets real screen time in that period, the audience will feel Connor's loss at a level that makes every modern timeline scene carry actual emotional weight, instead of just assumed backstory. Siobhan Cullen's Brenda is one of the most interesting reinventions here. Totally different from Roxanne Hart's original. Found at a different point in her life, already in trouble before meeting Connor on a pivotal night, and serving as the audience's eyes into the immortal world. Cullen praised what she described as Stahelski's parallel script, the physical and emotional subtext running underneath every scene. That framing suggests the action and character work in this film are genuinely integrated, not just alternating. Now here's a detail most people are sleeping on. Marisa Abella plays Kate Bennett, Connor's modern-day ally, and she's an archaeologist. That profession is not a throwaway choice. Someone in that field, getting close enough to Connor, would eventually start noticing historical inconsistencies that shouldn't exist. Artifacts, records, accounts from different centuries sharing impossible details. My theory is that Kate's work is exactly what draws the Watcher's attention to Connor in the present timeline. She inadvertently creates a breadcrumb trail that a centuries-old surveillance organization would immediately recognize as significant. Max Zhang's role is officially undisclosed, but his background tells you what it probably is. Stunt performer on Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Best Supporting Actor at the Hong Kong Film Awards for The Grandmaster, lead of Master Z alongside Bautista, their second collaboration, elite martial artist, capable dramatic actor, and the film is shooting in Hong Kong. My read is, he's playing an immortal who has been independently tracking the Kurgan for centuries with his own history to settle, which would create a three-way dynamic in the final act instead of a clean bilateral showdown. Kevin McKidd is the remaining wildcard. Role unconfirmed, but he has real genre credibility and the physical presence to play an immortal. The theory that makes the most narrative sense to me is a Scottish immortal from Connor's original era. Someone who remembers the same 16th century world. That specific kind of connection to the medieval timeline could be exactly what the film needs to make that period feel genuinely alive, rather than just historical backdrop. Confirmed locations: Scotland, London, Hong Kong, reportedly Italy. Real places, real production design, $100 million budget, 87:11 action choreography, Laustsen behind the camera, Bates scoring it. And the United Artists deal includes television rights, which tells you this isn't a standalone reboot, it's the foundation of a universe. The 90s Adrian Paul series ran 6 seasons and built out the Watcher's mythology and immortal world in real depth. A streaming series with actual resources behind it has enormous material to draw from. Screenplay credits: Ryan Condal, who created House of the Dragon and knows how to write centuries of history onto individual characters. Kerry Williamson's early conceptual work: Michael Finch from John Wick 4. 3 distinct perspectives refined over years into something the production committed over $100 million to. Release window: 2027 to 2028. Here's where I land on all of this. The original Highlander wasn't supposed to work. It worked anyway, and 40 years later, it's still the kind of film people defend with genuine passion. Not nostalgia, passion. That's rare. And reboots of films like that almost never justify their existence. They show up, they cash in on the name, they disappear. This one is different, not because of the budget, not because of the cast, as stacked as it is, but because every single creative decision visible from the outside, the director, the cinematographer, the composer, the choice to expand the mythology rather than simplify it, the choice to make Brenda real instead of decorative, the choice to give the prize actual apocalyptic weight. Every one of those decisions points toward people who actually understand what made the original matter. 40 years ago, there could be only one. In 2027, we find out if that was worth waiting for.